What's going on, YouTube? My name is Zach with Android Digest, and today I'm reviewing the Google Pixel 7 Pro, and I'm doing it in a very unique location. I'm actually filming this from New York because Google actually flew me out to New York to actually test this phone out in person. They actually sent me to a camp called Camp Pixel, and I'm here with a lot of other content creators, but I've actually been given a great opportunity here because I can actually test this phone out in nature. I can go on some nice nature walks and things like that because this is a great phone, but it does have some minor flaws. So with all that being said, let's get straight into it and let's check out the Google Pixel 7 Pro. So the Pixel 7 Pro, if we take a look at this phone, you're going to see that from front to back, this is a refinement of the Google Pixel 6 Pro. If you look at the design, you're going to see a very similar design. It looks terrific. It looks very iconic. However, you will see that they changed things to be a little bit more shiny. So I have the white version here. Of course, there are different color options, but you will notice this right here. You will notice the camera visor. You will notice the sides here. And the materials that they're made of, I will say that they are a little bit more likely to scratch than some other materials. So yes, they're not going to crack like a glass phone would, but on the other end, you are going to notice some scratches might end up right here on this camera visor. I have heard a lot of people reporting that on Twitter. Hey, this is a little more likely to scratch up. But outside of that, you could always get a dbrand skin, by the way, for that. Outside of that minor inconvenience, I would say I love the design. And they did improve the screen as well because the curve is a little bit less. So there was a big curve on the screen in the Google Pixel 6 Pro, and they have made that a little bit smaller on this, which is really, really nice because I just hate when the screen is so curved that you end up getting all these accidental presses. And also when a screen is super curved as well, it's a little bit harder to protect with a case. And that's something that a lot of people want to do. They want to protect their phones. So this is really nice that they really did make that curve a little bit smaller. And overall, I just love the look of this phone. I love the design of this phone, and I think it looks really, really nice. Now, one of the other ways that they really refined this phone was just in the cameras. So a lot of you know Google Pixels are known for their cameras. And throughout my time in Camp Pixel, I've actually been going out and about. I've been going on hikes and doing a lot of fun stuff outside. And as I've done that, I've been able to test out these cameras in good lighting and bad lighting, when it's light and dark. And I'm telling you, I'm really impressed with both the photo capabilities and the video capabilities of this phone. Now, this camera isn't without flaws. So I noticed when I was taking some video, for example, and I was really pointing this phone around the sun, I noticed that there was a little bit of lens flare. And for a long time, a lot of Android users, and I guess some iPhone users, have been complaining that iPhones have had lens flare. And they've noticed that on the iPhone cameras, and a lot of people have been mentioning it. Well, I have noticed some lens flare on the Google Pixel phone as well on the 7 Pro. So I've got to be honest about that because a lot of people out there, they need to know there are still some issues with this camera. Another issue I had was with the new cinematic mode. So the new cinematic mode is good in some ways. It will actually blur out people in the background who get in the way, or it will blur out things around you to really focus on you. And that's really tremendous for many things. However, this phone only has 1080p cinematic mode, and that's an issue I have because I really feel like they could put 4K in if they wanted to. Maybe they would have to work on the thermals of the phone. I'm not sure how they could get it there, but either way, I'm a little disappointed that we're having to deal with 1080p for that cinematic mode. So I do still think the video quality lags a little bit behind the iPhone 14 series, but overall, I do think that the video quality is still very, very good. When I was taking some video shots outside of nature in different lighting conditions, the video just looks amazing, and I was really, really impressed by it. Also, I will say the stabilization seems to be a little bit improved. I do like the video stabilization, and also the camera and the pictures are great on this phone, and I was really impressed with the zoom lens on this phone as well. So it is a 5x lens, and when you actually go out and take some pictures from really far away, what they'll do is they'll actually take multiple photos and then they'll really bring them together to actually make a sharper image. They'll use that AI to actually use their software to fix the problems that really the hardware provides, because again, it's really hard to get a really good zoom picture when you're talking about a smartphone camera, because the camera is so small, it's hard to get a really nice zoom on your phone. So I was really impressed with the zoom camera. I don't think it's quite as good as something like that S22 Ultra. Now this does have a 50 megapixel main lens, a 48 megapixel telephoto lens, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide lens. And all of these lenses did very, very well in my testing with photos. I was very impressed. And I'm always impressed with Google Pixel photos, especially when you look at something like Real Tone, for example. It does really, really well with different skin tones. So I'm very, very impressed with that and with how it really differentiates between people of different backgrounds, because honestly, phones do not do a good job taking pictures of people of color. So I'm very impressed with this phone for that reason. And also when I look at taking pictures of nature, I love how this phone just looks so good. Like the pictures look amazing when I'm taking pictures of things outside. So overall, just super impressed with the camera and super impressed with the video. Some of the best video quality out of any phone and the best out of any Android phone in my opinion. Now when we look at other improvements, when we look at how this phone differentiates itself from the Google Pixel 7, one way is actually the resolution and the display. You have a 120 hertz display. It also has a 3120 by 1440 resolution. And this is a 6.7 inch display, so it's a very large screen. The brightness is also higher than last year. We're talking about over 1500 nits of brightness. I think it's like 1600 nits now of peak brightness. And you're probably fine with 1000 nits if you're being honest with yourself. But this phone gets plenty bright. I absolutely love that. And also, I just love how it feels to use that 120 hertz. Now, it's not a big deal to go from 90 to 120, but if you've been using a 60 hertz phone, I've got to say, upping to this phone is going to be a really big deal to you. Now, the performance on this phone is also improved over last year's Google Pixel 6 Pro. This does have the Google Tensor processor, and it's the Tensor 2, which means it's just a little bit better, of course, than the Tensor 1. But it's a little bit faster, it's a little bit better with high-end gaming, so if you want to game on like Genshin Impact or something, you will notice it's a little bit better there. But I'm not a high-end gamer. I'm honestly someone who doesn't do a ton of stuff on my phone. Realistically, I probably don't even need the Google Pixel 7 Pro. The Google Pixel 7 is really good enough for me. But hey, you do get 12 gigabytes of RAM on this Google Pixel 7 Pro compared to 8 gigabytes on the Google Pixel 7. So it's really nice to get that extra RAM. The performance, it's not quite as good as the latest flagships as far as benchmarks go, but when it goes to real life performance and real life usage, we all have to understand that Google does so good with the software. Like the software is so fast and fluid that everything is going to feel so buttery smooth when you're using it. Of course, with a 120 hertz screen on this phone and that Tensor processor, it does great with your average everyday stuff. It flies through everything you do, and even on more intense stuff, it's going to do great. But where this processor really does its work is really with the software. This phone has the best voice texting out of any phone. If I'm using the microphone to voice text, it does such a good job really deciding what I'm saying on the go, knowing where to put punctuation and things like that. This is going to do better than any phone out on the market because they actually have some of the processor. Some of that processor is actually just working on AI stuff. It's really dedicated to that. You have Magic Eraser, which does great. You also have the fact that you can unblur photos after the fact that you took them. Even if you took it on a different phone, if it's in your Google Photos library, you can actually unblur photos. It's not magic, but it does help a little bit, and it does help unblur some photos. So that's all great, right? It takes a lot of power. But you might be sitting there and say, well, software has really been terrible on Google Pixel phones. If you look back at the Google Pixel 6 or the Google Pixel 6 Pro, there were a lot of software bugs with that phone. And I've got to admit that, right? It wasn't the best experience for everyone, especially at launch. Now, they did fix a bunch of those bugs over time, and most people didn't really notice many bugs after a lot of those had been fixed, right? So it took a few months, they ironed out a lot, and the experience got much better. But it still wasn't perfect. A lot of people were annoyed with the fingerprint sensor in the Google Pixel 6 and the Google Pixel 6 Pro. In fact, I was actually on a call with a lot of executives from Google, or a lot of people working on the Google Pixel 6 and the 6a and phones like that. And I told them, hey, this is a big sticking point for us. Like, the fingerprint sensor is not good on the Google Pixel 6. And even on the Google Pixel 6a, it's not that great either. Well, they did do a lot of improvements to it. It's still not an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, but I was very impressed to see that the fingerprint sensor is much better now on this Google Pixel 7 Pro and the Google Pixel 7. And I'm also noticing that not only is it quick, it's reliable. It seems to be a lot more reliable than the Google Pixel 6 was. So very impressed with the fingerprint sensor.
And I should mention that Google did actually add another way to unlock your phone, which is Face Unlock. And it's actually very quick. You just have to set it up with your face. And once you do, it'll unlock very, very quickly every single time. So I'm very impressed with the Face Unlock. Now, it isn't quite as secure as a fingerprint, but it is a great option to have.
But one of the other knocks on this phone is charging speeds. It does only charge up to 30 watts. I know some other phones charge up to 45, and some phones like OnePlus phones will charge like up to 120 watts, right? So Google is a little bit behind there. I do think they need to improve their charging speeds, but this phone is still water resistant. It's still really good as well. Now, it's not water resistant up to 1,000,000 meters, right? I'm sure it's like 30 meters. I'm just guessing there. And not only is this phone water resistant, but it could still charge other phones with its power. So it does have reverse wireless charging. Of course, it does have wireless charging as well. So I don't love how it's missing a couple of extra features like that extra charging speed. I wish this had an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, but I'm still pretty impressed with that. The speakers are very nice and loud. Again, they're not the best out of any phone, but they're still very, very close. They're still very, very good. So when I factor in the whole Google Pixel experience, I'm super impressed with this phone. Now, yes, again, Google sent me out here. Great. They try to butter me up and give me some drinks. I'm sure they really want me to really have a good experience with this phone. There's no doubt. But I have to think about my audience. And if you're out there and you're asking yourself, should I buy this? As always, it depends. If you're someone out there who wants the best smartphone out, this is definitely a contender for that, right? It's right there with the S22 Ultra. It's right there with the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, I get it. If you compare this to the S22 Ultra, it won't benchmark quite as high. The zoom lens will not do quite as well at large distances, and it can't zoom quite as far as the S22 Ultra either. And if you compare this to the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the battery life won't be quite as good. And of course, a lot of you just love that iOS experience. But those are really minor drawbacks compared to those other phones. And when you factor in that this phone has much better AI, it has much better voice texting, I think the video quality is actually a little bit better than the S22 Ultra. I think the picture quality at a closer range is better than the S22 Ultra. So overall, when you look at all that, and I would even argue that the pictures are better than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So even though the video might lag behind by this much, I do still think that the picture quality is a little bit better. So when you factor all that in, I've got to say, I think this phone is right there with the best phones in 2022. If you're bored of smartphones, sure, get something like a Galaxy Z Fold 4. Get something different and unique. And if you want the best of the best, yes, it's between this and the S22 Ultra and the iPhone 14 Pro Max, in my opinion. But not all of you should buy this phone because I don't think you all need it. A lot of you just need the Google Pixel 7 because it's only $599. It has a 90 Hz screen, not 120 Hz. The screen resolution isn't quite as good as the Google Pixel 7 Pro. Now, it is a little bit of a smaller phone, and it doesn't have a curved screen. And a lot of you might like that, right? So in that case, the Google Pixel 7 is definitely the phone you need to buy. Now, if you're someone who wants the best of the best, you want one of the best smartphones, and if you really like all these things I've mentioned, all the benefits of the Google Pixel 7 Pro, then yes, I think it's a great phone. And at $899, that's the price of this phone, the retail price. And if you compare it to something like the other phones out there, like the 14 Pro Max, you're arguably going to get a better phone. That's an arguable point. Maybe not. Maybe it's 50-50. It's a preference thing. Either way, you're going to get a phone that is almost the best of the best, and you're going to save hundreds of dollars. So the Google Pixel 7 Pro is a great recommendation from me. I would just say to look around and check those trade-in deals and check the links in the description, because Google was giving ridiculous trade-in deals. They gave me $480 at launch at Best Buy when I traded in my Google Pixel 6 to go towards that Google Pixel 7. And really think about it. Don't be afraid to ask questions to see what phone is right for you. And I would be happy to answer any questions that I can in the comments. Feel free to give me a like, by the way, if you liked this video. Leave me a sub if that is what you want to do, because that does help my channel. And check out some other videos if you get a little bit of time. All those are great ways to support me. And if you're out there looking for a good smartphone, I would definitely say this is it. As long as you're okay paying a little bit more compared to the Google Pixel 7, I would say that this is a terrific option for Android users. So thank you all so much. Hope you have a great day, and I do hope you enjoy your week.